Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second season of Art as Existence. Joining me today is my co-host, Mahnoor. And we have our guest today, Osama Ahmed, who's a psychotherapist. And he'll be telling us a bit about how art relates to his profession. People aren't usually able to draw that connection, but I think he's been able to do that a lot in his work. So first of all, Osama, why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers?
Thank you for the intro, Arham and Mahnoor. Essentially, I have a postgraduate from Queen Mary University of London in psychotherapy. I have worked in Pakistan for the past, roughly, you can say, 3 years. Whilst actually, also just a side note, while I was studying in the UK, I also was working with the NHS. And when I came back and I worked with schools exclusively because those are good opportunities to learn about every holistic field in mental health, from family to child and adolescent and adult. And then now, actually, I am an independent psychotherapist, supervised, of course. And the whole idea that I like to draw with art and mental health essentially is they actually go hand in hand. Mental health actually is a part of art, and art is a part of not your mental health, but mostly your mentality. So if you look at every painting you've seen, if you look at every expression, every poetry, painting, spoken word, song, anything, it's about what the person is feeling. Is it not? It's about them putting their soul out. It's about them taking everything they have in here and giving it to you, basically presenting it to you in a colorful manner. So let's just say that is your emotion coming out in a constructed manner. So in mental health, you also have your thought coming out and being translated in a constructed manner. So it's another form of expression. All of it, if you really think about it, is just a form of expression. It's about what do you choose, how do you choose, and which avenue you take for the expression.
Yeah. Mahnoor, yeah, go ahead.
Right. So, Osama, I think you've mentioned how art and mental health are not are not too far apart as we would perceive. So, because we as normal people also, or the general public, I think also perceives mental health to be a very like a psychotherapy and this kind of profession to be a very dehumanized profession. So if you could also now add in, why would you choose art to be, first of all, if you could also define what constitutes art, because for people who are not too connected with it, maybe would perceive a particular object as something which is a form of art, whereas for other people, the definition is very fluid or different, right? So why would you, first of all, how do you perceive art? And then why did you decide that you want to include this or incorporate this into how you, in your therapy modalities, or in literally how you practice your profession, or how you want to be perceived as a therapist?
So just a little background. When I was studying my postgraduate, my classmates actually were doing art therapies. So I was part of the psychotherapy class, and they were part of the art therapies, and like DMBT, which is dance movement behavior therapy, or play therapy, those kind of things. So I actually sat in some of their classes, and I was like, that's very interesting. So there is an expression. So that stuck with me, that art is an expression. Anything that is an expression is an art. People, let's say graffiti, right? Graffiti, like paintings, किसी ने the sidewalk पे कुछ लगाया होता है, paintings की होती हैं. Some people think it's littering, some people think it's garbage, some people think it's art, some people think it's expression. So the expression, that is art in my mind. That's how I translate it, is that whatever is your expression is your art.
Right. I think you've explained that pretty well. I'm a bit curious to know that therapy में एक बहुत important चीज is actually the environment. And in Pakistan, it's hard to find spaces which are actually have that openness to kind of move around and make the therapy room seem more humanistic rather than just a clinic which
Yeah.
you're going to. So I'm curious to know how you kind of construct your therapy room and what you use and how you use it to you play around with the environment to kind of support your practice.
Hmm. I actually had to wrap up my room because COVID. So that just and so the one thing that I've noticed because when I was making my practice room, I noticed one thing is that whatever I have, whatever I want, needs to have a personality. That was one thing I kept noticing as an ongoing theme about myself too, where I'm like, if I want a phone, like right now, I'll just show you my phone. I was like, I want a phone. I went ahead and got a purple phone. It gives it a personality. It gives it like, it's exactly like we're tired of that blue black, just that humdrum dynamic. You need something else that's just like, hey, this is mine. So I
The phone.
exactly, which is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing. I love purple. Is one of my favorite colors because it's so there. It's so regal, and it's like I'm here. You have to deal with me. But yeah, coming back to the point of my room is that I kept noticing that everything that I have, everything that I was using has a personality or needs to have a personality for some weird reason. Like as you entered my room, on this one side you had cascading shelves, and on those shelves you had you had plants essentially, and you had these little knickknacks on the sides, just give it like that little juvenility in that space. And then on the other end, I actually had curated my own little art gallery on the opposite wall, which was filled with paintings and just art I found. And the reason why I was so attached to that particular piece in my room is because it was the art I found. It's not like, when somebody gives you art and you hang it in your house, you're like, yeah, somebody gifted it to me. It's just that, it's whatever it is. But this was something that I actually went and I looked for and I saw and I could read, and I was like, I actually like this. I actually think about this. I actually feel something while seeing this. I want this in my space. I want to see if somebody else actually also feels the same way I felt or has a different feeling. So, I mean, for examples, I had a couple of pieces which, just these small versions essentially right now, but I had bigger versions too that I had all over my room. So, sorry. So, just these little mundane pieces or somehow these very expressive pieces, like, this pop art kind of situation going on. All of these just evoked different emotions. I wanted my gallery wall, as I like to call it, my gallery wall. I wanted it to be pockets. Pockets, world where a person could get lost in. Choose your own adventure kind of a thing. You don't like one painting? Hey, there's another one. There's another one. There's another one. There's a smattering of it. There's a wall of it. Choose your own adventure kind of a thing. So many times when there would be a lull in the conversation in a therapy session, I would see that the person is just looking around the room, and I'm like, tell me what you see. That was another way to get back into the conversation, just to be like, oh, so what do you like about this? Oh, so you like this about yourself? How did that happen? And then that just kind of took its own wave. So I would say that my room is my co-therapist. The room I designed would be a co-therapist. Would be like, oh, you like what you see? What do you like? What do you like about this room? What do you feel? And one of the things that I constantly kept hearing about the room I designed was, it's so raw. It's so raw. And I was like, what does raw mean to you? What is the meaning of raw? That it's in front of your face. It's right there. So I was like, and what about it? They're like, there's an ugliness and there's also beauty about it, but it's something that I was like, so what you're saying is it's life. That it's beautiful. It's somewhat ugly, but there's beauty in the ugly, and it's just something that you actually want to sit in. You actually want to feel in. And I would catch some of my co-therapists also using my room, being like, "We love your room. Can we use it?" I was like, "Sure, sure, it's fine. You can have your sessions here too." And then, one of the things was that I would get feedback from their clients where my therapist I was working with would come and be like, "Oh yeah, the client actually loves your room the most." I was like, I can look into interior designing for therapists as a side hustle. So, you know, just it was just one of those things where I found it very important.
Yeah, and I just have like a follow up kind of something to probably add on to that is that the environment needs to be one which can allow for vulnerability as well, because I think the environment, if you're sitting in a very professional sort of very serious kind of environment, it becomes really hard to even open up. So the rooms
Of course.
the rooms kind of being raw, as you say, is kind of showing the vulnerability of the therapist to kind of be, I'm not afraid of being who I am. And I think that tells a lot. And I'm sure that's why a lot of therapists were able to resonate, even though it might not be what they feel, but it just gave the client the comfort to say, okay, oh, yeah.
But it was a space, it was actually a space for both of them. That's the beauty about it. It was a space for both of them to be raw. And that's one thing I've also noticed, that as I was making that room, I realized one thing, and it hit me. I was like, oh, so this is just a huge facet of my personality. I've just made my room, I've just given this room a part of my personality, which is the rawness, because that's what I am. Also, I am very upfront. I am not afraid of who I am. I'm not afraid of, I'm not afraid. I am what I am, and I've accepted that, and I've moved on with it. And it's just, you take it or you leave it. And I've noticed that people take it. So that's the side. So I think the lesson I think the only lesson that comes out of it is that be yourself. You will find people that will enjoy that, will take it. You don't have to show everybody what you are, but if you are, who you are, people will gravitate towards you, the ones that need to. So.
Right, and I think the part of it's a part of therapy how the person is also it's a journey about self-discovery, and it doesn't have to be that oh, you perceive that piece of art in a particular way, for example a toy or a painting, and you don't want your client necessarily to extract those meanings. For example, you could have bought it for a very different perspective, and another person could extract very different meanings out of it. And I think that's the fluidity of art that makes it accessible, but the same thing actually for some people also makes it a very closed off means of expression also. But then Sama, could you please also talk more about the little toys that you were just showing us? And
Sure.
I would also love to know that how did people interact with the space? And let's not call them clients, because it again kind of adds
I had more than clients. I had more than clients in that space. I was just people.
I want them to be seen as humans, as people, and how did they interact with every little detail in your room, be it your painting, your wall, or even that small little toy that they could just see.
Of course. So these actually, I was in Karachi, and I was just walking around in Norman Mall, and I saw these these little tiny figurines. So I mean, anyone who knows them, they know that they're Pokemon figurines, right? So yeah. So I saw them, and I was like, oh, they're great. That would be amazing. I could totally put them around in my room. Where I was like, I'll just put them in my room. And when I brought them back, and I was like, I don't want to put them out in my room. I don't know why, but when I got my space, and I was like, there's actually utility for these. They can be in my therapy room. That is when I think I just took my creative license and I went wild with it. I'm like, it's my room. I'll do whatever I want to do with it. And so one thing that I did was, because of their miniature size, because you know how small they are, I incorporated them in plants. Like, you know, all the potted plants I had, I would like hide the figurines in the plants in the room. So whenever anybody would turn around, they'd be like, what is, oh, that's a little toy. So it would, the idea I wanted to give that is, you know how as kids you hide when guests are here, when there are guests in your house and you find that like, oh, there are kids in the space, cute. It was that, just that idea, just that juvenile, you know, that expression that, look, it's a safe space. They just wanna see. They just wanna see you. They just want to be around you. So that was one of the ideas what I had, and it became a great tool of expression for people, because many times when somebody had a lull in the conversation, I'd be like, okay, go pick out one of them. Who do you feel comfortable around? Which one? So one of the things I did was I also embodied these toys. I kind of gave them a life of their own. I would not say pick out a toy. I would like, pick out a creature. Pick out a creature. What do you want to name them? Okay, what is their name? What do you think they feel? So it's essentially that kind of just became like a tool of self-expression. Like essentially the person who was there would not see them as a different person, but as an extension of themselves. Like in one of the sessions, I was like, which one do you relate with as your child self? So they picked out one of the figurines and they're like, yeah, look, I relate with this one because it's smiling all the time. I don't know why, but it just smiles all the time. I'm like, okay, tell me more about it. And that kind of just took conversation somewhere else, where it it gave them a physical embodiment of their kid self, so they could feel. Because you know, many times when we say talk to yourself, we find it hard. We find like, I need to talk to myself. What, I talk to myself. I'm a person. But we're not taught that we're people. So that's why you need to use these external things as just a mode of expression. You know, here, this physical manifestation is you now. What do you want to say to yourself? So
Right.
it would just be that thing. And I also have these little figurines. So essentially the idea was, do you feel good? Do you feel bad? Or do you feel like a wild card? You know, so what do you feel, what do you want to express in this moment? What do you want to express in this moment? What do you want to feel? So it would just be one of those situations. And the art would just be a little pocket that the person could get lost in. Because what I've noticed is that art triggers feelings, art triggers memories. So the person would be like, oh, this seems familiar. I would like, talk about it. What's so familiar about it? So essentially, like I said previously, my room was my co-therapist. I am not exaggerating. That actually what it was. My room was a huge part of that entire experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Osama, we actually want to go ahead and show some of the art as well. If you could kind of talk about what a few of these pieces actually signified and what you know what they meant for you.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just going to share the work, and then we can kind of have a discussion on that.
Right.
Right. So I think this was one of my favorite ones as well. So I think, why don't you kind of just take us through what's going on here?
Oh, this is one of my favorites. So do you want to hear a little bit of the backstory for this piece?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So I was walking. I was essentially walking from St. Paul's Cathedral, and I used the Millennium Bridge. I hated that bridge. That bridge is so rickety. It moves with as much air flow, so it was a nightmare to be on, because the bridge kept moving, and I don't. Right underneath it is the river, is the Thames River, and you're like, if you get, it's just a personal fear of mine that, oh, if you get, you just go in the river, you're lost. So I just kept. I was like, just face your fear, run through the bridge. So I was running through the bridge, and I saw that the Tate was there, the art gallery. I was like, why not just go with it? Today is the day I've given to myself. I've given myself a free day. Why not just explore and do some things? And I was just walking around the gallery and I saw a lot of the pieces, and I was just like, okay, so this is art, this is expression. People are doing this. I saw some weird stuff too. I saw some stuff I didn't understand, and as I was going this, I saw this, and I immediately just stopped for a second. I was just like, why does this piece feel familiar? Because it was a Western art gallery, so you find something that's somewhat remnant of your culture, you're just gonna stop and be like, okay, oh wow, this exists. This is allowed to exist. So I was very much captivated by this piece, and I saw it, and then I read the name, and the name made so much more sense. Third Class Passengers, and that name and this painting just evoked feelings that I know this. I know this piece. I've lived in this piece. This piece, it reminds me of my life, of like the religious experience I come from, the cultural experience I come from. And this is a Turkish painting, so that's an even more just strange concept. When I found out, I was like, this is Turkish, but why does it feel like I know it? And so I was just like, I want it. And I found out that it was on sale, and I actually went to the gallery store and I bought the print. And it was the most expensive purchase I made during that day. So I will say that it was on sale still, but it was the most expensive piece in that sale that I bought, and I was so happy when I bought this and I've had this piece since 2017. I haven't opened it. I opened this piece in 2021 because I was like, now I can open it, I can display it with happiness, and like this is something I have. This is something I bought. Until then, it was just in my closet because I couldn't find a space where I could put it and be happy about it. So just this idea, when I look at this painting, does it not look like it should be something that should be painted on glass? Like it kind of gives that glass painting feeling. Like something that would be in a church. I would happily see this in a masjid, or a cultural center. If you're saying UK, so I would love to see that there, and the randomness, the scattered pattern of the people. As you can see, some people are eating, some people are praying, some people are talking, someone is sleeping. It's just this very idea of how our community is. Coming from my background, I've seen this personally. So it just gave this very, relatable idea of the community I came from. But for some people, when I showed them this, it gave them anxiety because this was something that they don't want to do. And I was like, I understand every one of us has different experiences with our upbringing and different experiences with, how we perceive our realities. So just there were two sides of it. And I don't know, you said something about this. I forgot. I don't know. Could you just remind me what you said about this painting when you saw it?
Well, I'll have to kind of go back into that state. I don't remember, but I remember the chaos in it. I saw how there were people at the back also.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was something that I also related with so much, because if you look at it, it is chaotic, but it's somewhat controlled chaos.
Yeah.
It's somewhat of controlled chaos, and that's something that I can relate with. With my upbringing and everything I've known, that I've always had a controlled chaos kind of an experience. So I loved this painting even more so.
Yeah, and I think just another thing it kind of also illustrates is class. I think that's something I can really see right now. and across this painting you can kind of see a different class probably in every part of this.
Yeah, like because it's a community class. If you look at it, it's a class that's very much a community. You see people eating, you see people drinking, you see people talking, you see people sleeping, praying, just existing. It's essentially existing.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that part of this.
The part of the painting that's particularly, there's two things that are really striking me. So there is color. It's not a colorless, but the color doesn't come across as color. Just the way you said, it's controlled chaos, because it is chaotic. But the first thing you see, the first thing I see, for example, is the people on the green walls. And I am trying to, the whole time that I'm looking at the painting, I'm not trying to see the person in the lower left corner who is laying down, or the people who are eating, but the people who are trying to climb. I don't know what they're trying to do, but they're just hanging on by the wall.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to understand, how is my brain processing what's happening in the painting?
Control the chaoticness of it.
Exactly.
So
And why would you want to see in your therapy room, for example? For example, when you mentioned that you had finally found a space for display, why did you think that this was something that needed to be in a space where you were giving therapy?
So the one thing I believe as a personal policy about myself is that don't hide, don't advertise. That's my personal policy. Don't hide who you are, but don't advertise it, because you don't want to shout out from the mountaintops that this was my childhood, this was my life, this is what I know. Just if someone wants to know, they'll ask. So this was a good way of just kind of giving that segue that this is a part. This is something that I came from. Do you come from this? So one of the things about mental health, one of the constant things I keep hearing from clients or from people or from whoever struggles mentally is like, I feel so isolated. I feel so alone. This was kind of just a way of, do you relate with this? I relate with this. So you're not alone in this. Just this idea of isolation that we have. It's a very constructed idea that we feel so isolated because we'd have no way of expressing ourselves, or nobody will understand us. People will understand you. It's just they don't want to express that. So this is just a safe kind of a way for people to express that. And one of my styles in communication and therapy essentially is that I reach deep within and I pull out the thing that you're scared of. And I'm like, okay, now this thing is out. What's going on? Why are you so scared of this? Why are you giving so much power? So for me, this is something that I put out. I'm like, it's chaos. I have an experience of chaos. It's out there. You can see it. I'm not scared.
Right.
Because it took me some time to get used to of it. So now I'm just like, why would I want to bury it back inside?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think we can move on to another piece of art. And I think there are other forms of art you've also used in the form of poetry. So we'd like to talk a bit about that as well. But just before we get on to that, let's take a look at this one. I think this is a beautiful piece.
Yeah.
Something I really like. And,
do you know what it's called? And that's the conversation starter I always ask people. Do you know what it's called?
I mean, I know. Was it something jalebi? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Go on. It's very the piece is so obvious. Like the name is so obvious because when that's another thing about art that I've noticed, the pretentiousness of it, that people are like, this means something of existential of something. But this particular artist, Bhupin Kakkar, he's Asian Desi pop art. pop artist. So he in the partition era. So that was something that I also related with this one. I was like, oh my god, so this is a partition era pop artist. Like, wow. So our experience has been turned into pop art. Because if you look at pop art, it usually comes in Andy Warhol is the go-to name, or Roy Lichtenstein is the go-to name. But then I found this and I was like, wait, we have pop art? My people, South Asians, Desis, we have pop art? Oh my god. And then I saw this and the name is so obvious. The name is Man Eating Jalebi.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. But if you look at it, it's just life. You know, like life goes on. You can enjoy a moment. Life will still be there. So for me, how I translate this painting is that you can take a break. You can enjoy jalebi. You can take a break. Life will still be there. It's not gonna go away. It's not gonna be on pause. It's not gonna be anything. It will be there. You can engage in it whenever you want. Life goes on. Life moves on. Take a break. And the blues, I don't know, for some reason, the blue of the water was so captivating. I just wanted to get lost in that blue. Just like, I was like, I want to be in that water.
Yeah, for sure. And even like an observation I made when I saw it first was also the colors on his face, on his, it's like that's something that really it shows some
Yeah,
kind of emotion. And
exactly.
yeah, so I think this is a good segue into your poetry work. So why don't we talk a bit about that as well? You have a page on Instagram,
Yeah.
the Talking Therapist, and you've been putting up a lot of written poetry work there. So yeah, just talk about how you got into that to begin with, and what's the purpose behind it?
So initially, the purpose was like, you're a therapist, do you want to have a page on Instagram or something like that? But I noticed one thing that every therapist page I was looking at was very informative. It's not a bad thing. Of course, you need pages, which gives you mental health information. They give you guidelines. They teach you. So I know so many like Maheen Said, the Safe Space, the Pakistani therapist, Jasmine Rana, Let's Talk Lahore. That's not a therapist page, but that's a mental health support page. So many of these, they're therapists. Some of them are therapist pages, and they give you information about therapy, about yourself, about just ideas. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be an information page. Like, there's so many out there. Go look at them. What do I want to do? What do I want my voice to be? Because that's one thing that I'm also very adamant about the things that are in my control. Things that what's the voice? What does it sound like? And I think Arham, Mahnoor, you guys also have that experience while talking to me. That I also asked you guys, what is your voices about it? So that's the question. I was asked, what does it sound like? What do you want it to sound like? So that's when I just started noting down what I was feeling and all the feelings that I've written down, everything that I was going through, and I just like started going through it, and I was like, what can I do with these? How can I make a person relate with them? Because information is great. Information, education is elevation. I believe in that, but again, like you said, therapy is such an isolating profession, and people usually just deify us or demonize us. Therapist. Ugh. I am someone who believes in showing the human. I'm a human that practices therapy. So that was forefront. So I think the poetry was something that when I thought about it, I was like, it makes sense. It's an artistic expression. People interpret art how they want to, but it's what I feel, or it's what I've heard people feel. And I just started writing it down, and then I just started posting it. I mean, if you go to my page, the early on work is like very like the first 2-3 posts are like very pictures, and then you see like a large quote writing. It actually started with an Eid message that I wrote, And I was like, you know what? I actually like this. I actually like this. I wanna go in this direction. And then I found my direction. And now what happens is that I will be getting ready for bed. And as I'm getting ready for bed, because all the thoughts start to sink in at the time when you're about to go to sleep. I know you guys can relate with this. I know you can. And that's the thought. Those are the thoughts that keep us up at night. I give them an outlet. I'm like, let's write them down. Let's write them down. Let's see where this is going. So I think one of the I've shared a piece. I shared one of my poetries with you.
And I think, yes, I want to talk about it. I think the one that I found the most striking, and even when we were having a conversation before, I think we talked about this when we were talking about our own traumas and how they affect us. And there's always a victim inside you who is, if not validating, at least recognizing that you are in pain, if not even, you sometimes, I think there's this inherent, I think, jo conditioning, especially, for example, speaking about being a woman myself, I think we are always conditioned to conceal our pain or rate 10 pain, 5 pain, because it's glorious to not speak about your pain and be labeled as someone who's brave and courageous. And I think it's always come from a place of being, victimizing your own self, and then you flip the picture and say, okay, it's coming from a place of narcissism. And I remember having a conversation about it, and I think you should, talk about your piece as well. Okay, how do we see our own selves?
So I remember that conversation, and so the whole point is that one of the things that you are given when you were born in Pakistan, I'm not going to speak for the South Asian society, I'll just say Pakistan, is this inherent victim complex. Is bichara, bichare, just the word bichare, because and it's just such a caveat. It's such a caveat that you're a victim of what, of who, of where, of when, and it just kind of cascades into that. And we're taught, we're as I like to call it, we're given an Elsa complex: conceal, don't feel, and minimize your pain. Just kind of be like, I can handle this. Because you want to put up a brave face, but essentially what you want to do is you want to earn those brownie points, because that's what your society taught you, that the more you conceal your pain, the more you perform. The more brownie points you get from us. And then when another person feels that pain, you can actually come in and we'll validate you too, and we'll use you as an example. कि देखो वो कर रहा है ना, तुम क्यों नहीं कर सकते? So that's your moment to shine. That is essentially your glory moment. Like, hey, I am used as an example now. So, but is that example worth it? Is being an example worth it? If it's not on your own terms. If you feel sad, feel sad. If you don't feel sad, don't feel sad. You don't have to feel sad. So this piece, the narcissist, I've always, for some, all of us have had an experience with a narcissist, be it a parent, be it a friend, be it anyone in our life. So I was just sitting and talking to a couple of my friends, and we just kept talking about the narcissists in our lives, and this just started coming to me. So as I was talking, I'm like, shut, something's coming, like, what's coming? I was like, I just started writing it down, and so every line just makes sense. I mean, they take and they drain. That's the only thing a narcissist does. They take and they drain you till there's nothing left of you. And then you think that they're special, you think that they're the person you want to invest in, but it's nothing but a facade. And they're very charming, and they're very, very smart, and they think you're stupid, and they think you're just a routine. So that's where the charm comes from. That's where the cleverness comes from is because, and that's the biggest mistake a narcissist make, is they think the person in front of them is stupid. And that's something that's also very much within all of us. If you think about it, we always say, oh, I'm better than this person. Oh, I'm better off than this person. That's a very narcissistic trait that you say. And और हमें सिखाया जाता है in society, when people are like, चलो तुम तो शुक्र अदा करो ना, तुम्हारे साथ तो ये नहीं हो रहा ना, उसके साथ हुए, तुम्हारे साथ ही, तुम्हारे साथ. So that also is just like, it just gives you this narcissistic idea. And if you think about it, when the bomb blasts were happening, because spoiler alert, Lahore has a history of bomb blasts in the 2000s. The one thought I kept hearing is कि चलो हमारे साथ कुछ नहीं हुआ, चलो हमारे घर कुछ नहीं हुआ, चलो तुम्हारे साथ कुछ. It's like there was a hierarchy. There was a hierarchy. Like people have died. You're not gonna mourn them. It's just you're like, चलो तुम्हारे साथ कुछ नहीं हुआ ना. You're fine now. You're fine. You don't have to feel it. You don't have to. No, you have. If you want to feel it, you should feel it. You should process it. You should not shut it down. And that's another thing that I kept noticing about narcissists is that they lie a lot and they make you feel like it's your fault that they lied. They make you feel like that, you're the one that's why they're doing it. And we've heard this, all of us have heard this line so many times from people when they're like, oh, maine ye kiya kyunki tum ye kar rahe the. Why didn't you just talk to me about this? Why couldn't we have an honest conversation? It's because the narcissist is incapable of having an honest conversation, because there's no honesty from the get-go. So that's another thing. And boy, it turns out it's all a play till someone else becomes their prey. So if you notice, narcissistic people, they jump from people to people, like they have burning bright friendships that are like, oh, this person is my best friend. And then when you get the validation from that person, you're like, I met this new person. I actually like them. I'm gonna see where this is going. So it just kind of goes into that. जो acceptance मिल जाती है ना, you're not fulfilled by this acceptance. You're just like, oh, great, I did my job. Gotta move on. So that and narcissism is inherently part in our society. Like if you think about it, yes, this is someone that we've all experienced, but also this is something we've also done to people. So हमारे अंदर भी वो narcissistic traits हैं. It's just you need to be open enough to admit that, I have narcissistic traits. Do I have to work on it? Do I want to work on it? Or should I work on it? That's your own journey. Just admit this part of yourself. Be open about it. Be upfront about it. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think even when it comes to a lot of personality traits, and generally even when it comes to understanding yourself, we tend to put ourselves into categories and tend to put ourselves into binaries कि मैं तो अच्छा हूँ, मैं ऐसे तो नहीं हूँगा. But we need to realize, but and that's we need to realize that there's a difference in having something within you and acting upon it. And undetected personality traits, undetected parts of yourself can kind of seep through like this, and you wouldn't even realize.
Yeah. Here's a sentence that people always use. ये नहीं हो सकता. ये नहीं हो सकता. I'm like, no, change the grammar, change your grammar. It's not कि ये नहीं हो सकता. It's like you don't want to do anything about it. Be honest about this. Be honest rather than saying ये नहीं हो सकता क्योंकि हालात ही ऐसे. No. You can do something about it. It's just you're choosing not to do something about it. या कोई external चीज तुम्हें रोक रही है इस वक्त. It's not कि ये हो ही नहीं सकता, ये हो सकता है. It's just थोड़ी सी extra मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी उसके ऊपर.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if it's something in your control, you can change it. If it's not, that's something you can't control. If it's not in your control. But when it comes to you, you have control. It's one of the examples I always use is when we talk about social constructs and societal constructs and personal, just in general, like rules and norms and all that, people are like, हम लोग तो ये नहीं तोड़ सकते, हम लोग तो ये नहीं कर सकते, हम लोग को तो ये करना पड़ेगा. I was like, no, no, कर सकते हो, because जिस जगह पे तुम लोगों ने एक दरवाजा लगाया वो दरवाजा है नहीं, वहां पे दरवाजा है ही नहीं. It's just you have made a door. You can easily choose for there not to be a door.
So I have a question. So, who is the voice in your poetry? Is it your voice, or is it a person who has been, for example, in this victimized by the narcissist, or do you choose to give? And I think, Arham, if you could please share the next piece, the grief, or if is it just called grief? Grief, it's grief. Okay. So, do you choose to give voices to your poetry, or is there someone who is, or are they, for example, a dialogue, or is it just a monologue? What's your style of poetry, and why do you choose to use it?
So one of the things I really loved about, I heard this from Alok V. Memon. They are a non-binary trans activist, and they said the reason why I love poetry is because it has no rules. You can choose to express yourself how you want to, but it's there. So that was the one thing. That was the one thing that made me gravitate towards poetry, because it can be what you want to. It can be what you want it to be. Poetry can be whatever you want it to be. So no one can question that. And when it comes to the voice, but the one question is, do I relate with it? Can I relate with it? Can I feel it? So one part of being a therapist is you kind of have to think what the person is going through, empathize what the person is going through, put yourself in that situation, and then kind of just like operate. Okay, acha, personality type is this. This is what the person is. This is what their reaction would be. This is what they're going to go through. This is what they were feeling. Okay. Oh, this is what they were feeling. Oh, this is a very bad feeling. This is not a great feeling. It's a very sad feeling. Oh my God, if I was feeling this, I would go in this. So you have to kind of be very boundaried and keep that separation between yourself and the client or the person. But again, like I said, I'm also human. I've dealt with narcissists. I've felt grief. I've been happy. I've been sad. I've had a burnout. I've all of this. So again, when you ask my voice, this is my voice. This is my voice. This is a voice that I've experienced, or this is a voice that I've heard and I've empathized. So yeah.
That's great. I think just having read these pieces of poetry, and you initially mentioned how it's kind of not the approach which a lot of therapists take. They're very informational, and what I kind of felt is a therapist telling me that there's nothing wrong with being depressed or being anxious. That's pretty easy to say, but being able to see that in a therapist really, it actually creates that connection that, oh, this therapist is going through that same emotion which I constantly am invalidating in myself. And I think it tells a lot more than just disseminating the information. So I think there's it's a different approach, but I really think it has its own kind of place with people in general, I guess, the way they look at it. Just before we wrap up, I have would you like to add anything?
Yeah, one of the things that I also noticed that make therapy such an isolating profession, and I've never agreed with this aspect, is sure, in a therapy session, it's not about you, it's about the client. I know that much. I know the boundaries. I know that, the person is coming to you. You need to deal with the person. But outside of that room, outside of that hour, in your own life, you don't have to be a therapist. In your own life. Because that's the one thing I've heard so much. तुमने तो therapy पढ़ी होगी, तुम्हें तो पता ही होगा ये. तुमने तो therapy पढ़ी होगी, why are you feeling this way? So one time I was not feeling so great, and somebody in my life came up to me and they were like, "Why do you need to go to a therapist?" And I just looked at them and I was like, "Is that a question? Like, okay? Let's."
We don't perceive
Yeah.
it the same way.
Yeah, and I gave them a response. I said, okay, if a heart surgeon is having a heart attack, do they crack open their own chest and perform surgery? No, they go to another heart specialist. It's that simple.
Absolutely, yeah. Uh, that's the idea of actually humanizing the therapist. So I can completely understand that. Now, before I wrap up, I was really curious to know कि therapy अभी भी हम जितने therapists देखते हैं, they're usually they've done practiced a lot out of Pakistan, away from that South Asian context. And I'm just wondering कि आप जब वापस आते हैं इसके अंदर तो you don't find the same kind of context in which the client is operating in. You may be able to understand it, but a lot of the modalities and even the ways of to approach, they aren't culturally kind of adjusted. So how do you deal with that?
So that is where that was one of the challenges I was studying psychotherapy as my postgraduate. That was one of the challenges I came across a lot. Is that I knew how to deal with white problems. I knew how to deal with British problems. I did not know how to deal with brown problems or any other like a Desi problem because I'm Desi. I'm a South Asian therapist.
Hmm.
I come from a Muslim majority country. We have a class struggle. We have colorism. We don't have racism. We have colorism. Like the dynamic is completely different. So that was one of my complaints always that we don't have education for us,
Yeah.
for our experiences, for what we need, for what we have to transcribe or what we feel. So that's why when I came here, and I'm so grateful for these people, Mariam Heather, Yasmin Khan with the IFS Institute, Umar Tasif also, and these guys, they Arham, oh God, Arham, they're amazing. They kind of created these courses which translated them for us, which translated these therapies for us, and within that, and this conversation is an ongoing conversation that what does South Asian mental health look like? Because we never asked that question. Because अभी तक हमने partition के बारे में बात नहीं की. Why would we talk about our mental health? So that's an ongoing conversation, an amazing conversation. Like one of the examples I will give is I did an IFS course. IFS is internal systems. It's about the parts within you and how they operate as family dynamic. So one of the things that they gave us as part of our training was these Z3 camp cards. These cards by the IFS Institute, and essentially they adapted the cards for our culture. So here is a soldier. Oh, sorry. It looks like a very Pakistani soldier.
Absolutely.
Right? Pakistan Army, because Army. And then you have these people.
What's that?
It's just so whatever it is you want to feel. For me, it's just this masculinity femininity war that we have within us. So, but they're brown. They're brown people in the card, not white people. So they have a couple of these cards that are specifically tailored for our side of the fence, our people. I love that. And when we were part of the trainings, it was brown people in the training. It was our problems, it was our issues that we were discussing. So that's what I loved about it. And also when I was doing my child mental health course with Akas and Mariam Heather, we talked about brown kids. We did not talk about mental health for kids. We did not talk about mental health for kids. I'm so sorry.
No.
So yeah, that was one of the things is it was our problems. We got to discuss them. We got to discuss what we were going through, and how can we use what mental health knowledge we could use for our problems, and what made sense for us, what therapies made sense for us, what modalities. So like for one of the modalities I use besides IFS is mentalization. Mentalization is essentially the concept is thinking about your thoughts, the thinking about thinking aspect. And it's great for people with personality disorders, narcissists, hence I use that modality a lot. And trauma informed. One of the things we haven't accepted about ourselves is that we're all traumatized. We all suffer from this generational trauma. We all suffer from this this pain that's actually very recent. If you think about it, it's 74. It's 74 years old. So like that's a grandparent age. So so these are the conversations we need to have. Like, why are we shaming people? Why are we trying to hide these things? Why are we trying to like tell them to, don't talk about this? You have to talk about it to kind of work a way through it, because this problem is going to exist and it's going to manifest and it's going to grow and it's going to grow. And I think the biggest example is what is going on with the male population these days. That's the biggest example. Like, that's what happens. That is what happens when you don't let males express themselves. They let envy and narcissism guide them into these acts, which makes them feel justified and righteous, and that's not right. That's the monster you made.
Absolutely, and just this kind of hate towards femininity, as if it's something that doesn't exist within them as well. It's just something they're trying to reject because they hate it so much in themselves.
Yeah. Actually, it's not that they're rejecting it. Funny fact, it's not rejecting it. They're envious of it, but they're envious that they can't express it. It's not rejection, it's envy. Because society does not allow them to express it. So it's just inherent jealousy of people whoever can display their femininity.
Yeah.
It just comes from a place of envy. Why can you do this and why can I not do this? And it's a very common envious phrase. If I can't have it, no one will. That's essentially how everyone is operating. It's not right. ये सही नहीं है. ये सही नहीं करे. किसके लिए नहीं सही? किसके लिए ये नहीं सही? I think that's the question that needs to be asked. Who do you think this is not right for? That is usually where those conversations kind of go in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go on.
Me?
Yeah. So I think on that note, I think thank you so much for.
We can end the conversation on that note. Sama, do you have anything else to add? I think it was a pleasure talking to you, listening to you, and it's a very insightful conversation that I hope our viewers also enjoy. Do you want to add anything else?
If you feel like you need help, you do need help. I think that's what I want the viewers to take away from that is when you say na mujhe kyun therapy chahiye, when you ask that question, the answer is if you're asking that question, you know the answer. You know the answer. So that and also go check out my page, the_talking_therapist. And also my information is on there. If you feel like you want to talk to me, you want to essentially book me as a therapist, that too. So
we'll put that on the description so people can reach out to you. Yeah. But thank you so much for watching, everyone. Thank you, Mahnoor. And
thank you so much, Mama, for being here. It was a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure.